It's our third date. The one where you come back to mine's, so I can cook for you. But who knows? I'm wearing probably this exact shirt, textured t-shirt with tighter arms so I look buff. I'm drinking whiskey on an empty stomach because I'm nervous. And I'm making you coq au vin because, let's face it, there's nothing that gets a third date done like coq au vin. This episode is sponsored by Challenge Dairy, the new butter in my kitchen. Challenge, the butter with the elk on it, is in the same family as Danish Creamery, but Challenge has innovated the way we use butter. They have these cubes in 4 tablespoon chunks, so you can throw it into your noodles, your pan sauce, or your potatoes. Today I'm using butter to elevate this date night coq au vin. So whether you're tackling a weekend cooking project like this dish, or getting dinner on the table quickly, you can grab a cube of Challenge butter. For more info on Challenge and to find yourself some butter cubes, scan the QR code or head to the description. Coq au vin doesn't just sound romantic, it is romantic. It's deep, dark flavors earned with time and heat, passion, and you can communicate that to your partner with every bite. Sex stuff. So what does coq au vin mean? Literally translated, it means cock with wine, which isn't just what I call my Saturday nights. It's also, literally, rooster or cock with wine. Roosters are very, very tough birds. They're pretty much all dark meat. So they need a slow and low cook, which is where this recipe came from. Nowadays, very hard to get rooster, and it's not terribly good. So our best bet is to use dark meat chicken. Here I have some chicken thighs. You could also use drumsticks, but I prefer the thighs because I want crispy skin on my coq au vin. And given that this poultry will be partially submerged, the only way to make sure that all my skin is crispy is to use thighs. So first thing we have to do is trim and dry brine these thighs. So I'm cutting off any excess skin. So if you have any huge kind of hanging chads like this one, you can just whomp, lose it. Now that these guys are trimmed up, we're going to dry brine them. Grating out on both sides with just a light little layer of salt. This is virtually always a good idea with any kind of meat, especially things going into a braise, because it's going to help it retain moisture and stay tender and not dry out over the long cook time. So these guys are going into the fridge for at least 6 hours, ideally 24, even 36. And because this is television, of course I have swaps. This is what it's going to look like after about 6 hours. You'll see that the skin almost becomes a little more translucent. It dries out, becomes a little glossy, and it's got a tacky, almost semi-sticky texture to it. All ideal, all what we're looking for. Now it's time to address the other dark meat in the room, the bacon. Ideally, you want to get slab bacon, whole pieces that you can cut into lardons, which are these big crispy hunks. All I could find in this case was some nice thick cut, usually it's labeled butcher cut bacon. If you use thin bacon, that will still work. It will definitely impart the flavor, but this has a better chance of staying crispier. Normally, coq au vin is not a dish associated with crispness, but I think that it adds a whole other dimension. So this bacon is going into a cold pan. Try to get everybody out into a relatively even layer. And to this amount of bacon, this is about a ½ pound, I'm gonna add about maybe a ¼ cup of water to 1/3 of a cup. So I'm putting this over medium heat and I'm going to cover it. This will ensure that not just the bacon on the bottom of the pan is going to have its fat rendered out. This is gonna steam everybody and it's gonna help us get crispier bacon. Then I'm gonna uncover it, let all the water evaporate, and the remaining fat will fry the bacon the rest of the way. You'll also notice that I'm cooking this at a pretty low temperature. The bacon is not spatting or sputtering. There's a lot of foods in this world that you need to hit with high heat fast, otherwise you won't get good browning. Not the case with bacon. If you fried this bacon hot and fast, the fat would not get the chance to render out, and you'd end up with a crispy exterior and a kind of flabby interior. That's nice for snacking, but for this case, I want these guys to be crunchy, or as you Americans would call it, crunchy. Now that the bacon's looking pretty much done, I can pour it out into a sieve, reserving the bacon fat. Spread these bits out on a paper towel where they can just sit, and as they cool, they're going to become incredibly crispy. And then we're left with our bacon fat. You can see that there's some particulate in this, detritus from the bacon, but it's all on the bottom. So if we just sort of spoon the fat off the top, we can use it for frying the chicken and bolster the bacon flavor in our coq au vin. So now it's time to prep our veg. And as you can see, we have the usual French stew suspects. We have onion, celery, carrot, garlic, mirepoix, garlic. And I like to add a little secret ingredient, parsnip. Parsnips add a delightful sweetness that you might not expect in coq au vin, but enough about that. You said that your friend Beth was being super weird. Tell me more. So for all these vegetables, we want comparably sized pieces so that they cook at relatively the same rate. Last up, the garlic. I've got 3 big cloves here. I'm going to slice them very thinly, lengthwise. You can see the cross-section of the clove in a lovely way, and I think it's just going to add more dimension to the look of our dish. Now for our bouquet garni. Traditionally, bouquet garni is a little bit of parsley, thyme, sometimes rosemary, and bay leaves tied up inside a leek leaf. But we live in the modern era, and we can use stuff like this, cheesecloth. Basically what we're doing here is making a homemade tea bag with all of our herbs inside it, so they don't end up in the sauce, but we get all their flavor. It is also an opportunity to add one of my little secret ingredients, some dried porcini mushrooms. What this is going to do is impart that lovely mushroom flavor without having to actually put mushrooms in the braise and them ending up all mushy and slippery. Pile all of our herbs in there. I'm also going to throw a couple peppercorns in here. Now, you could just tie this with string, but if you don't have any string handy, you can always just grab yourself an extra length of cheesecloth. You can just use this bit of cheesecloth as a piece of string. And just like that, you got yourself a little tea bag, a little flavor bomb that we can throw in there and discard after the fact. Last thing we got to talk about before we start cooking is booze. This is, of course, coq au vin. That means cock with wine. So we need wine. For the wine, we need a full-bodied red, like a Pinot Noir or a Burgundy. If you don't know what wine to use, go to your local alcohol dealership and ask the dealer where the full-bodied reds are. When it comes to cooking wine, generally the cheaper the better. You don't need all the complexity of an expensive wine. It's just a waste. Then we've got cognac or brandy. This is optional, but it makes you look really cool because we're going to flame it, and it imparts a very classic coq au vin flavor. We just need a little splash of it. The amount of chicken that we're using, 4 thighs, about 1.5 pounds, I'm going to get about 1.5 cups of red wine at the ready. Wine is a nice deep cherry red that's going to translate to a lovely color at the end of the cook. Now onto the question of stock. Like most things in life, it benefits the most from homemade, deeply gelatinized stock. That's not always an option for everybody, especially if you're just trying to make this on a weeknight for dinner for 8 screaming kids and 2 screaming husbands and 4 screaming wives. You guys are a mess, honestly. Like, you gotta get this whole polycule like tied down. So my go-to recommendation is this, better than bouillon. This stuff makes 38 cups of stock per jar. It stays in the fridge for a very, very long time, and it actually tastes good. Like, it tastes like chicken. Taking about a teaspoon's worth, you need a teaspoon per cup of water, and I'm just gonna mix it in there. Now, to bolster this stock and create a better imitation of homemade stock, we're gonna add some gelatin. That is the prize of making stock yourself, is that you get natural gelatin extracted from connective tissue and bone and stuff. So for 1 cup of stock, I generally do 1 to 2 teaspoons of gelatin, and blooming gelatin is a little tricky. First off, make sure that you're using cold or room temperature liquid, and let's pour this into a bowl. That's going to give us much more surface area so that we can sprinkle this evenly and it can incorporate more naturally. Just keep going slow. You don't want powder to settle on top of the gelatin as it hydrates. As you can see, I've got no lumps, I've got no pockets of powder. This is just fully bloomed gelatin, which we're just gonna let sit for a minute to properly hydrate before using it in our recipe. Long, hot, hard, slippery. Babish cookware. You know what I'm trying to say. Okay, all of our mise has been put on place. We have everything prepped and ready for the braise, so you know what time it is? That's right. It's time to get cooking. You didn't know I had that tattoo, did you? So the first thing we have to do is get our chicken skin nice and crispy. This might sound weird, but I am putting these chicken thighs into a cold pan, skin side down. So this is gonna be a little weird, but I'm gonna have to do this over here. And that's because this burner is bigger, and we need good, solid, even heat, especially with a pan this big. So I'm starting over like medium-low flame. When you're learning how to use stainless and cast iron, you're told never to do this. You're told to get the pan ripping hot so that food doesn't stick. And basically what this is doing is it's going to render all the fat out of the skin. It's going to turn into liquid fat that the chicken starts to fry in. And then once you've got a really nice golden brown crust, it'll lift off the bottom like this is a non-stick pan. Now there's probably a 1/4 cup of fat rendered out of the chicken. I'm going to turn up the heat a little bit. Any pale parts on the outside, I'm just tilting that fat right into it so that it basically just deep fries. As you can see, when it's ready, it lifts right off. It's beautifully golden brown. Look at those. Dear God. They smell delicious, they look delicious, and they're just completely even. What we have here are two very important things. We have a whole lot of chicken fat, and we have fond. We don't need all this fat. It's a little too much, and I want to incorporate some bacon fat. So I'm going to pour off a decent amount, leave maybe, I don't know, 2 tablespoons in there. I'm going to add a little bit of our bacon fat. We want to get this over medium-high heat, because now we're going to saute. As these start to release moisture, you'll see that the fond starts to scrape up already. So yeah, I've got these bits right here. They're not coming up just yet, can't get them off. So make sure they're covered with vegetables. They won't burn. Now you can see as the vegetables have released moisture, it's starting to come up off the bottom. All right, our veg is looking great. It's got nice color in it. It's got nice caramelization. So now the next 3 additions are gonna happen in rapid succession. First up, our slivered garlic. Just saute for about 30 seconds. We just wanna get some garlic smell in the air. Now I've got about 1 tablespoon of flour. Now I'm sprinkling it over the veg. This is sort of like a cheater's roux because it sticks to the bottom of the pan and it sticks to the veg. You can see that they're getting pasty. We got our tomato paste. I'm gonna do about 2 tablespoons worth. Mix that in, let it start sticking to the bottom of the pan. Look at that fun. That's gonna taste incredible. Look at it. And now for the scary slash fun bit, I'm going to add a big old splash of brandy and then flame it. Flambe is not for the faint of heart. It's dangerous. But I like danger. And as much as I like danger, you can do it more safely by turning off your stove's flame and lighting it with a stick lighter, something that keeps your hands away from the flame, and then turning the flame back on once the alcohol is burned off. As long as there's liquid in the pan, nothing's gonna burn, but as soon as that evaporates, we need to get to scraping because all that stuff is stuck. There we go. Now for the rest of the stuff. We have our chicken stock. We added 1 cup of liquid and it's already thickened to an almost gravy-like consistency, so we're on the right track. And we're gonna add our wine. 1.5 cups. This is our gold color here, brownish red. Now we're gonna bring this up to a simmer and we're gonna reduce it. I want the veg just peeking out a little bit. At this stage, we can also add our sort of tea bag. The veg are just peeking out now, so I'm gonna turn this down. In fact, I'm gonna turn it off. I'm grabbing our already quite crispy chicken thighs. These need to be nestled down in there. Making sure that the skin is above the watermark. And it's headed into a 350-degree Fahrenheit oven for anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour until the chicken is tender, the skin is crisp, and the vegetables are nice and soft and fully cooked. Now onto the matter of the mushrooms, and all we really need for this are the mushrooms, some salted challenge butter. That salt is going to help draw moisture out of the mushrooms faster so they brown faster, and some finely minced fresh thyme. Thyme and mushrooms go together like time and space. For this amount of mushrooms, I'm going to do about 1.5 tablespoons of challenge butter. Add our mushrooms. Also, mushrooms love to suck up fat almost instantly, so try and give these a toss to make sure that everybody gets a little bit of fat. This is actually another good opportunity to cover the pan. Let the mushrooms steam, which will draw all the moisture out of them more evenly instead of the ones that are just in contact with the bottom of the pan. Now when we remove the lid, you'll see a ton of steam, shrunken mushrooms, and water. Something you might not know about mushrooms is that they're very, very wet. And all that moisture needs to evaporate before they can brown and the Maillard reaction can occur. Now that they're starting to pick up some color and they're in their last few minutes of cooking, I'm gonna add that chopped fresh thyme. Let that get a little bit of heat, just add a whole new dimension to the mushrooms. All right, there are our lovely golden brown butter fried mushrooms. Now for the pearl onions. I'm going with frozen pearl onions because they're way more convenient and they're just as good, being honest. I'm going to saute them in the Julia Child fashion, which means they need to be dried with extreme prejudice. Because if they're covered in water, when you add them to the hot pan, they are going to put a scare into you. They're gonna remind you that life is short and that you're not invincible. Over in the nonstick, I'm gonna heat a tablespoon and a half of butter, add our very dry pearl onions, toss them around in the butter so that the butter doesn't brown, then leave them undisturbed for a few moments because we want to get some nice browning on them. All right, they got some nice color, some nice browning on them, so that means it's time. We're gonna add 1 cup of beef broth. Now these guys are gonna braise on the stovetop for about 30 minutes. Our onions are nice and tender, so now I'm going to uncover them and let most of this liquid cook off until they're very soft and jammy and have a nice thick sauce enveloping them. As you can see, our onions have become a lovely shade of golden brown. Most of the liquid is cooked off and now they're just in this very thick, very rich sauce. I'm gonna cover those up, keep them warm until we're ready to serve. So we're gonna serve our coq au vin with some buttered noodles, but not just any buttered noodles, the best buttered noodles, by virtue of my new favorite sauce in the whole wide world, Beurre Mont. Sounds sexy, because it's French, so it is. But it's also a versatile and stable butter emulsion that your pasta is just begging for. Start with a tablespoon of water. Bring that up to a simmer. A little bit's gonna evaporate, that's absolutely fine. Now we're gonna turn this down all the way to low. We're gonna start adding our challenge butter. That's basically all we're gonna do is add butter, little pieces at a time, keeping it over hilariously low heat, just enough to melt the butter until we have a thick, creamy emulsion. Look at that. It just creates this gorgeous, shiny, thick, stable butter sauce. And there you have it, Beurre Mont sauce. It's got the consistency of an Alfredo sauce. You've never seen butter sauce like this. We're gonna just hold this, we're just gonna let it sit until we're ready to eat and we've got our pasta cooked. And then I'm gonna pour this over the pasta. The heat from that could split it, in which case, add a little bit of pasta cooking water, it'll come right back together. Babish cookware. The decision is clear cut. All right, the timer just went off for our coq au vin. Let's take a peek. Oh, it smells nuts. It looks beautiful. So I'm going to remove the chicken carefully, trying not to get any sauce on that skin. Being out of the steam bath is going to help the skin crisp up even further. Now this guy we're going to aggressively reduce. You can see how much it's reduced. You can see the watermark here from where the liquid was. It's already reduced by probably half. I'm going to reduce it by half again until it's a thick, glossy sauce. As you can see, the chicken has browned up beautifully and it is glassy crisp on the outside. I'm actually going to throw these into a 400-degree Fahrenheit convection oven and give them just literally 2 or 3 minutes to put a final crisp on that skin. Okay, that's looking like the sauce of my dreams. Look at that. Kill the heat and get ready to cook my pasta. Traditionally served with buttered egg noodles, which is lovely. I like to use a really nice macaroni-style pasta, just little pieces of pasta that I can just bathe in butter and just scoop up with all my wine and vegetables and chicken. I have this very beautiful creste di gallo. I think that's how you say it. A lovely sort of fluted macaroni, and it's been cut with bronze dye, which means that we're gonna get starchier pasta water and the butter is gonna cling to it better. Cooking them in not very much liquid. That way we're gonna get much starchier pasta water in case we need to bolster this butter sauce. Now we can discard our herbs packets. I'm gonna place it in a mesh sieve and really press out all that liquid because everything that's in here is gonna be laden with flavor. So before the chicken comes out of the oven, I'm going to add a bunch of mushrooms and bacon to the sauce. We're hanging on to some for garnish. That is proper coq au vin sauce. I'm gonna start warming this back up before the chicken comes out because I wanna rest it right in here for service. Now, these are crazy, properly crispy. Am I telling you that I'm a thigh man? I mean, I didn't intend that at all, but I totally am. Like, big time. Like, that's it for me. The chicken thigh. but also your thought.
Kill the sauce because it's bubbling. I don't want it to boil off any further. Nestle these guys back in there. Just remind them where they came from. This is almost done. And I really don't want this to break the sauce, so I'm gonna do it over here, off heat. Yeah, the sauce is still creamy and thick. That's emulsifying together with the pasta cooking water, creating one of God's own gifts. Added a little bit of kosher salt, freshly ground pepper as well. Okay, time to plate up and eat. Get our beautiful buttered pasta in there. Then we've got our lovely coq au vin sauce. That sauce is going to intermingle with the buttered noodles and you're going to die a happy person. Crispy chicken right over top. Nestle it into the sauce like that. Hit it with some of our jammy caramelized pearl onions, some of our sauteed mushrooms, and of course, some of our crispy bacon bits. I'm gonna garnish the chicken with parsley and garnish the pasta with chives. There you have it, an absolutely stunning bowl of coq au vin, a classic French poultry braise. And you might have had coq au vin in the past, but I promise you haven't had it like this unless you just made it along with me watching the show. But enough talking about it, let's try it out. Super creamy, glossy pasta. Sweet, rich, jammy onions. Crispy, actually crispy skinned chicken thighs. I'm a fully loaded bite, come on. There's just nothing like it. It's one of my favorite slow and low dishes. It's packed with all different kinds of flavors and textures. One of the most richly flavored stews or braises you're ever gonna have. The flavor combination is stupendous. The herbs accentuate all this rich, meaty flavor, and then you get this hit of bacon in there, and then the onions, the jammy, sweet onions. It's a whole experience, this thing. This dish is an experience to be had. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you try this for yourself because it's a little labor intensive, but in less than 2 hours, you could have this on the table, which again is labor intensive, but you know, you could be cooking all day and not have a meal like this. I love you too.
Oh, you meant the chicken. You love the chicken. That's what I meant too. I love you too. I was talking to the chicken as though it were a person because that's how I feel about meat. I am a vegan. I've loved working with Danish Creamery this year, so I'm excited to partner with another butter in the same family, Challenge Dairy, the one with the elk on it. Challenge is special because all of their dairy farmers are in California, and the butter is all made in California, meaning from cow to butter is no more than 48 hours. This means that the butter is incredibly fresh and that Challenge is sustainable with a low carbon footprint. With these new butter cubes, Challenge is perfectly portioned and ready to be grabbed for your next kitchen project. I can't wait to show you what we get up to next with more butter. For more info on Challenge and to find yourself some butter cubes, scan the QR code or head to the description. Well, I think this went really well. And with your permission, I'd ask you to my bed. Oh. Still want to sleep with me?